Hello fellow Star Wars fans, my name is Star Raptor and welcome back to the channel, and I am back from New York Comic Con. There was a lot of cool Star Wars stuff there. They had a Star Wars publishing book panel where they revealed a brand new Star Wars comic miniseries, Son of Stars, coming out in February. So I'm playing a little bit of catch up because we did have one comic that released last week. So we have The Mandalorian. This is episode 4, issue number 4, based off the same episode of season 1. And this is all about the Cara Dune story. So yeah, I did not think I would ever say those words again with Disney Star Wars canon storytelling. But, you know, it'd be kind of awkward to leave the character of Cara Dune out of the episode that she gets introduced into The Mandalorian. So yeah, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one. It's written by Rodney Barnes with artwork by Jorge Janti. So go check it out if you're a fan of The Mandalorian. It's good for collecting, but don't expect anything out of the ordinary from what actually happened in the episode. But it's very faithful art here that is done by Janti here in this issue. So getting into the big one. This is the big one for this week, guys. These are all from Marvel, by the way. We have the launch of Phase 2 of the High Republic in comics, written, of course, by Kevin Scott, with artwork by Arya and Dito. The original team that did Phase 1 is now doing Phase 2. And I also have the variant cover here for number 1s. I like to pick up the variant covers for the series that mean a lot to me. And the High Republic has certainly made an impression on me, so I had to pick these up. So if you are unaware, the High Republic Phase 2 is actually not taking place after Phase 1, but rather 150 years before Phase 1. This is 150 years before the emergence of the Nile with the great hyperspace disaster, before Light of the Jedi, the novel. We are now in the Quest of the Jedi phase, 150 years before all those events. And this one is basically going to be all about Jedha. So we have this character, this Jedi named Vildar Mak, and he has just gone to Jedha to go on this mission to investigate what is going on with the disappearance of a lot of different artifacts of the Force. So we get to see Jedha like 350 years before we see it in Rogue One. There is still aspects of it that are familiar, but there's certain new things about this. So apparently the Jedi used to completely govern Jedha. Like that was their territory. But recently they have this thing called the Convocation of the Force. And that is basically an assembly of not only Jedi, but different Force worshipping groups, such as the Disciples of the Wills and the Sorcerer of Tun, I think, could be part of that. The Yakumbi, like there's a lot of different things that are initiated in this thing. So anyway, we have this story where this character, Mac, meets up with this other character named Maddie, aka Methia Cathly, to take him to this location. Well, they run into this conflict where there are these two different worshippers of the Force, different ideologies are butting heads. Next thing you know, a thief goes, snatches something and runs away. So we're seeing Mac go after this person, lose him, and then next thing you know, he's having trauma because he sees this character, the Sorcerer of Tun, that gives him flashbacks to his time on Kifex. He's the same species as the character of Quinlan Voss, by the way. So we see all this stuff happening, and long story short, he ends up going back to this location to investigate the stolen mirror, and he finds the same thief again. He follows the thief and realizes, oh my gosh, this thief has mastery of the Force beyond recognition. Like this person is really good at anticipating the moves of the character of Mac, and ends up using this move called the Moritro, or the Touch of Death, which is when this character can touch you in the area where your heart is and stop your heart with the Force and kill you on the spot. And that's literally what happens with this character doing it to Vildar Mak. So the first episode, bam, and by the way, this is called The Pilgrim Moon, Balance of the Force. This is the subtitle of the chapter. He ends up getting killed. So the whole crux of this story is that we have a Jedi that has been killed mysteriously from this character that we don't even have a name for. It kind of looks like an elf. And wow, man, oh man, that is one way to open it. But we also have a backup story of this. And that one is called Peace and Unity. It's written by Kevin Scott, but this one's penciled in, drawn by Andrea Bricardo. This is focusing on a completely different character. Her name is Olivia Zeveron, and she is a Jedi, and she is going to this Convocation of the Force, in which we see all these people. We get to see this conflict that is happening right off the bat, where the Convocation of the Force is like people can go there. Anybody that has a Force religion can go there, and it's like a philosophy thing back in Greece, I guess. These people just get together, these different representatives, and they just kind of theorize, talk about what they agree with, what they disagree, in a relatively civil manner. And well, they're also kind of like the people that have the sort of laws on Jedha. But something gets kind of crazy, because when she shows up there, when this character, this Jedi of Olivia Zeveron, there is a fight that is breaking out. There's a Force worshipping cult called the Ukumbi that used to basically just worship the dark side of the Force. And there's this one lady that is accusing this person of that, and she is from the Falanasi Order, I guess, and they study what is called the White Current, which is a cool tie-in to the Star Wars Vision story, where they call that the Force. That's their term for the Force, is the White Current, right? So there's this kind of standoff where you have these different characters, like this Keldor, part of the Matukai clan. And then you have the Elris, which is or Lanto, which is part of the Poison Ivy clan. There's like, they basically have like, this is what I love about this issue, not part of the Poison Ivy clan, but they look like they are Poison Ivy with the way they use the Force and the vines. I'm trying to do my best to explain this, because man, oh man, there is so much detail that is packed in this story with all these different Force religions. But long story short, there is they are supposed to be welcoming to these people, but these people are judging them. And even though the Ukumbi are said to have practiced the ways of the dark side, they haven't been doing it in centuries. So apparently that person gets disgruntled and leaves, and then this other person shows up, and who is it other than Sunshine Dobbs, who is basically a person that is working for the Path of the Open Hand, which is a story that was in the book of the Path of Deceit, which is the first book that really kicks off the entire phase 2. So this story actually takes place after that. So we see that guy who is working for the mother going to get them entered into the Convocation of the Force, apparently. So that's the whole issue. There's a lot going on. I know if it was sounding a little bit convoluted, a little bit kind of crazy at certain points, it's just because we are getting introduced to a sheer amount of characters. But man, oh man, whether it be Andrea Ricardo or Aria Andito, the talented Aria Andito, these guys have fleshed out Jedha to be its own character. I love how much the artwork really brings these stories to life. Cavan Scott really setting the tone, really setting what is going on in Jedha. We have murder going on. We have some disgruntled members of the Convocation of the Force, which maybe will end up becoming something that's more of a permanent animosity for some organizations that want to go against them maybe in the future. So I'm just very happy with how this story turned out. Very different from issue number 1 of phase 1, but nonetheless, this is something that I'm happy for it, because this is what I would like to see from Star Wars, is something that's a little bit more off the beaten path. There's not as much action, but there's a lot of mystery going on here. So the other issue that we have that's been long awaited, that is Star Wars Visions number 1. This is a one-shot, and it's written and drawn by the same guy that made the Ronan short from Star Wars Visions. That is Takashi Akazaki. I hope I pronounced that correctly. So this is not an adaptation like The Mandalorian is. This is a fresh new story following the Ronin and his astromech. I'm guessing this takes place after the events, maybe, of what happened in the Ronin short. So they are just traveling. There's like all these different troopers fighting. And basically he encounters this guy, this stranger guy that also has an astromech, who plays it very coy. This guy is just very excited to see Ronan, wants to have some sake alcohol with him in the hot tub, in the hot springs. And they kind of go on stories and telling what happened here and there. And eventually Ronan finds out that he is a Jedi, and they are forced to fight each other. And it's a pretty cool way of showcasing how they're honorable, they fight, and then they go their own separate ways. And this character against Ronan says, if I meet you again, we will fight once more. So it's this kind of cool, like, underlying honor aspect that they have. But this is a really cool piece of Star Wars comics to have in history because I love the artwork that is accented with the reds, right? It's all black and white until you're using the lightsaber, and it feels like the animated short come to life through the pages of comics. And to see it through that lens was something that I thought was just really fun to see. And it's got really cool designs that we haven't seen. Like there's a lot of different Sith, a lot of different helmeted designs that are taken from Star Wars stories before, a lot of different aliens. There's like a walker, like an AT-ST head that's used as a speeder. So there's a lot of really cool designs that kind of made me fall in love with the Ronan anime short, which this definitely makes me want to go back and watch it for like the 10th time or however many times I've seen it at this point, because I do love how concise those shorts are, why they are called shorts. But yeah, I would say if you're a fan of Star Wars Visions, definitely go pick this one up because I think you're going to really enjoy this one. And the last one we are talking about tonight is Star Wars issue number 28. How striking of a cover is that? You got Luke Skywalker in an Imperial officer uniform. So this one's called The Calculus of Loss. It's written by Charles Soule with artwork by Andres Genolet. So this is kind of like a three-parter in which we find out these people that are working for Crimson Dawn. They're double agents working on the Death Star to get that information and take it down. They're trying to give it to the rebels. They crash land on Coruscant, and that's when Luke Skywalker is alerted that there are people that are trying to reach them, and that's what this one's all about. It's a rescue mission. Luke Skywalker goes down to Coruscant with his Imperial garb, and we get to see him getting stronger in the Force at this point. I like how Charles Soule has been sprinkling these little tidbits of how he's been sort of, leveling up in the Force, if you will, along the way in between Empire and Return of the Jedi. So he's able to kind of use the mind trick a little bit, even on his own comrades, as more of a joke, which is, Luke, maybe you shouldn't do that so much. But, he goes down into the lower levels and he's able to save this family. That's why I like this dynamic of the family of the father worked underneath of Moff Jerjerrod. He was the assistant, which is why he got this information. And then his wife was just like a load lifter lady. And then they had the kids and they all escaped. So there's this familial element that is so grounded in Star Wars to begin with. So seeing that and seeing them on the run in the lower levels of Coruscant, seeing the Underworld Police, the same uniforms come back from the Clone Wars animated series or tweaked a little bit. But it was really cool seeing that Gothic architecture of Coruscant and seeing Luke be there right at the right time, because they get surrounded and they're not going to believe that Luke is actually trying to get them out of there. So what does Luke do? He does something that I don't think we've ever seen Luke do before, and that is to channel the Force to control beasts. So he controls these things called the corridor ghouls, which kind of reminded me of a little bit of like rat ghouls from the Undercity of Terrace in Untitled Republic, the original game. They're very like pale looking creatures that obviously are looking like that because they live in the sewers and they don't get sunlight. So Luke is able to control those things and just get those Underworld Police the heck out of there. And he gets back to the base, and we finally get that tidbit that he gives to Mon Mothma and Admiral Akbar. The Imperials are building a second Death Star. So I think we're just getting closer and closer to seeing Bothans for the first time in Star Wars canon, because to my knowledge, we still have not even heard or not even seen the word mentioned in any Star Wars canon text so far. So I cannot wait to see where that story is going to go. This story gave me a lot of Shadows of the Empire vibes, because in that story, Luke does go to Coruscant during the Imperial era and tries to take out, I guess, Zizor. It's been a while since I read that. But yeah, fun story, fun adventure story. The next issue looks very weird, maybe Scarlet Citadel-esque, where everybody's dressing up once again and doing going to some kind of party. So I don't know if I'm super excited for that, but I am excited to see where this story overall goes. Hopefully we get to that before the end of the year with more on the Death Star 2. So that's going to do it for all the Star Wars comics that came out this week, plus the Mandalorian comic that came out the previous week. For more on Star Wars, you're already in the right place. I have reviews for the upcoming High Republic books, Quest for the Hidden City. I have my review for Path of the Open Hand, or Path of Deceit, I should say. So there you go. That's everything. Make sure you go ahead and subscribe to the channel, where I do talk about Andor on a weekly basis, as well as on my weekly Star Wars podcast, Outer Rim Transmission. That is going to do it for me, Star. Thank you guys so much for watching, and may the Force be with you always. Thanks for checking out the video. Please hit that thumbs up symbol. It helps me know that I'm making content that you guys enjoy. And if you enjoyed this video, I also include 2 videos down below you guys should check out. And please consider subscribing to this channel. It helps support me and it notifies you guys of when I get new videos up on the channel. You can also contact me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at StarRaptor.